Hello everyone and welcome back to an Archaeologist's Guide to Minecraft. Whoa, that doesn't work. Hold on. Hello everyone and welcome back to an Archaeologist's Guide to Minecraft. It has been way too long since I did anything in this world. I last logged in, it was 1.20.1. So we've done an entire set of Minecraft updates since then. I never wanted to abandon this world for the length of time that I have. I love this world. I'm still here in my snowy spruce forest, my snowy spruce mountains. But we're gonna update today because we need to. It's been long enough. We need to update to 1.21.10. So this world is about to get a massive overhaul. Are you ready? Hold on, wait a minute. Okay, look, this is gonna be a little bit lackluster, but this is what it looks like now. Okay. And here's what it looks like in 1.21. I saved these chunks, so they're not gonna look all that different. Actually, probably at most they're gonna look a bit desaturated because of the fog. But I've only saved where I have built, like my base, and then over there towards the bricks quarry, brickworks, etc. I haven't saved anything around me aside from this biome. So we're gonna do some exploring. Editing Archeo here. I didn't even realize until I was editing that when I came back in 1.21.10, I was using my Scottish accent instead of my American one. So this is a linguistic phenomenon. It's called code switching. And basically, code switching is when a person switches from one language or dialect of a language or variety of a language into another. For one reason or another, there can be a whole host of different reasons. For me, it generally happens unconsciously. I can force it, but then I spend more time thinking about the accent that I'm using than the words that are coming out of my mouth. And as you can imagine, that leads to problems. So I genuinely, as I said, I genuinely didn't realize that I was using my Scottish accent in this clip. I promise that 1.21.10 didn't turn me Scottish, even though it sounds that way in the video. I need to empty my inventory. Oh my goodness. I was building houses. So the last time I was on here wasn't actually the last video that I made. It was actually a charity stream that I did last year. It has been one heck of a year. 2025 has been so busy that I feel like I haven't been able to breathe like at all. But the thing that was taking up most of my time in 2025 is now done. It's this lovely book called Carved in Stone. It's a storyteller's guide to the Picts, to Pictish Scotland, early medieval Scotland. Basically, if you remember the DK illustrated encyclopedias from when you were a kid, this is effectively that, but with a lot more storytelling and story hooks involved. Also, for those of you who enjoy tabletop RPGs, you can use this book to run a campaign in whatever system you play in. But also for those of you who aren't into tabletop RPGs, there's almost nothing in this text that's specific to those games. You can just read it and enjoy it. It's also a big book. This is like a coffee table book, and the artwork is gorgeous. If you'd like a copy, you can order both a PDF or a hard copy, and the hard copy comes with a PDF as well from Stout Stoat Press. I'll put the link in the description down below and also in a pinned comment. I don't remember where everything is in here. My goodness. Okay, well, some of them are labeled at least, so that's good. I'm pretty sure dirt is like here. Oh, look at me go. Excellent. We're gonna set some stuff to cooking. I could cook the meat, but I'm just gonna use the potatoes. It's fine. And then we're gonna explore a little bit because I like exploring things. Here, is there any? No, there's copper, so that's helpful. Look at all this copper. It's almost like I knew that in a year I would need a bunch of copper. One of the big reasons that I'm really excited, I'm excited to come back to this series anyway, because this is, of all of my Minecraft series, this is the one where I just get to be a Minecrafter and an archaeologist, and I can just like do whatever. Whereas a lot of my other series, I'm focusing on ancient Scotland, and there are certain things that don't exist in ancient Scotland, in medieval Scotland. Things like fireflies. I'm so excited to be able to use the fireflies. I plan on using them in my other series, but I can't really use the bushes. Like, they can't be acting as fireflies in those series. So I'm really excited to be able to get some fireflies. But hold on a second before I show you the new stuff, because Minecraft has added copper tools and copper armor and copper things to the game. We're gonna build a copper mine because Minecraft added copper. So we don't have to skip over the Bronze Age. We can do the Bronze Age. I mean, technically we're doing a Copper Age instead of a Bronze Age because that's what, oh, I meant to be firing these. That was kind of the whole point. In this version of Minecraft, we now have copper tools, we have copper armor, we have little copper golems, which I'm so excited about. We've got so much copper. So that's what we're gonna do. Also, in August of 2024, I did a charity stream for Stack Up, during which people could donate to get a house in this little village that I've started populating. I figured with all of the people who are working at the brickworks and with my charcoal kilns, we're starting to get enough industry in this area that there is more people than just myself living here, and more people than just will fit overnight in like the workspaces, like the brickworks, or I don't think there even is accommodation at the charcoal pit, which really there ought to be because they have to monitor that thing. I know technically I'm like, originally I was doing it, but I think I could use the help. So anyway, so I built these lovely houses. They don't currently have interiors. I'm gonna be working on that over the course of the next while. It took a long time. We raised a bunch of money for Stack Up. But yeah, so at some point I'm gonna decorate the inside of these as well. But I thought it was good to have a bit of a village. So this is the brickworks that I built in the last episode. Right? This is an enormous project. Oh my goodness. The copper mine that we're building, I don't think it's going to involve this much building. It's still going to involve quite a bit of building though. And so this is the brickworks because we need bricks to be able to smelt to be able to smelt copper and also iron. But this is as far as my territory goes so far. I went by chunks and I wasn't super concerned about getting like really refined in the details. So there's going to be a little bit where we don't have new terrain necessarily, but I think we'll still find some terrain. So I'm just going to head this direction. I should really get a horse, but I would need a saddle first. You know, maybe we'll find a saddle. Although you can craft them now, can't you? Look at all this copper stuff. I know how to play this game. Okay, so iron, right. So we can't get a saddle. We can't make a saddle until we can make iron. Well, that's going to be a while. What about a bundle? A bundle is a lot of leather. Oh my goodness. And string. And I don't know that I'm going to easily have string. So we're just going to keep going in a northeasterly direction, vaguely. A village. Well, that's exciting. That's way closer. I didn't pay attention to where the villages were, but when I was trimming chunks to be able to spawn like pale gardens potentially closer to my base and such, I noticed that there were like 6 villages that were all closer than the one village that I went to. Somehow I managed to miss all of the villages. So we're doing the same general gist of villages. We're treating them with as much respect as we can. That is not, I don't judge people who do other things with villages and villagers. I don't really mind. But I find it fun to, oh, there's a bundle. Okay. I don't have much of value to trade for a bundle, but I would really like a bundle. So I'm going to give them my raw beef and my leather. And then I'm going to give them half my coal as well. I feel like that's a fair trade. Mostly. I'll give them some potatoes too. maybe it's not quite as good. We'll do this with the sugarcane. That makes things so much nicer. Okay. We've given them something in exchange. So yeah, so for those who might be new, I don't take stuff in this playthrough. I don't take stuff from a village without giving them something in return. And it has to be something that feels of equal value. So I can't just sit here and take their iron armor, for example. I would need to give them something for it. But I'm not going to do that anyway because, oh, hello. Because we're still in the Stone Age. We don't even have copper tools yet. We'll get there. I don't need any of this. Where are all the villagers? I hope they haven't perished. Oh no, there they are. Okay, good. Excellent. So yes, so generally in terms of taking stuff from villages, I won't take stuff from them unless I give them something in return, or I perform some kind of service that would be worth what I'm taking. So in my previous episodes, there was a point where I went around the village, I lit the whole thing up and covered up all the holes, and that felt sufficient for what I was taking from them. I don't need this. I don't have enough to give another bundle. It's good to know that this village is here, though, and if there is a house with a saddle, what I might do is figure out something to give them because a saddle would be useful. I think it would be useful to have some kind of animal. I appreciate that they have bundles in their chests. That's like at least in this village, that's a common thing that they have. That's really cool. Because it would be a common thing that you'd have in life in general. Just think of how many bags we have in our daily lives. Okay, I think that's the entirety of this village, more or less. There's a hill over here that's exciting. I like hills. I like walking up hills because then you can see for a while. Also a mushroom. Hold on. Yeah, okay. This is bundles are great. I know some people don't like them. I know a lot of people wish they could do more. I really like bundles. I think they help so much, especially in things like gathering, like I'm doing now, where I may well have these things, but I can't remember, and I don't want my inventory filling up with a whole bunch of stuff. It was a hefty cost, but definitely worth it. And especially if you're a player where you're not necessarily giving villagers something of equal measure. Wildflowers! Oh, I'm so excited. Okay. I love these. I love the changes that Minecraft has added. I'll take that birch thing. I love it. I'm so excited about the flowers and the leaves falling, and there's gonna be leaf litter. I need to find leaf litter. Oh my gosh, I love the wildflowers. They're so pretty. And then, unless this is, I don't think so, fallen logs and another mushroom. I'm so excited. And leaf litter. Okay, hold on. I'm so excited about this, you guys. I'm so excited. I love doing like nature decoration in Minecraft, like little gardens or little bits of grass or trees or flowers around builds. I'm so excited. And while I'm adventuring, I figured I would talk about something because this series, as a reminder, is the things that archaeologists think about while they're playing Minecraft, right? Or at least the things that I, as an archaeologist, think about as I play Minecraft. And one of the things I wanted to mention is that, especially with things like my brickwork series or today's episode on copper mining, I don't know. I don't necessarily know about everything that I cover in these videos in this series before I make the episode, right? So it's like archaeologists, we don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of everything in the world that has ever happened, which I know that you know, but there is a degree to which I think a lot of people forget how complicated the past really is, and therefore forget exactly how much information a single archaeologist does or doesn't know. Now, once we get to glass, hold your horses, because I can talk for days about ancient glass. I don't need to look things up for ancient glass. I've been studying glass for, goodness me, for 16 years at this point. So so I can tell you about ancient glass without really needing to like look up new information. I know that's my specialty. I know that information. The same is pretty true for early medieval Scotland. There might be specifics that I need to look up at times, but generally speaking, I know early medieval Scotland, right? So I don't need to go down the research rabbit hole of academic articles and journal articles and book chapters and such. But when it comes to something like copper mining or even just copper technology in general, I don't study copper in archaeology. It's not my specialty. I know a certain amount about it. Every archaeologist knows about copper to a degree because we excavate it. We find it in the ground. So like I know what color copper is when it comes out of the ground. And I know the extent to which Minecraft has nailed that oxidation color. But I don't know how people mined copper. Like I know copper ores. I know some of them. Like I know that malachite is a copper ore, but I don't know exactly how people got the copper out of the ore, or I do now, but I didn't before I started making this episode. Part of the point is the things that archaeologists think about. The main thing we're wondering is, oh gee, I wonder, like, how do people get copper out of the earth today? How did they do it in the past? When did they first start using copper like worldwide? And depending on the technologies, like when did the modern technologies come about for extracting copper, and what did people do before that? And the other thing that comes up a lot with copper is certainly as soon as you start looking into it, there's a certain amount of discussion of people using native copper, which is just pure copper, which does appear in the Earth's surface. But the question becomes, okay, well, when did they start using other copper ores like malachite? When did they start using those? And when they did start using them, how did they, with the technology available to them, get the copper out of the malachite? So maybe, I don't know, let me know in the comments if you're curious, like if you'd like me to structure one of these episodes where I tell you all of the questions that go through my brain as I'm exploring this topic. That could be an interesting thing to do. Let me know if you'd be interested in like the list of questions and the order of the questions. I can try to consciously document that as I go in a video, if you're curious. Ah, leather worker. Okay. And a saddle. Okay, all right. I'm gonna give you my enchanted golden chest plate for a saddle. I feel like that's a fair trade. They may even be getting more out of this deal than I am. Good to know that this is here and literally 300 blocks away from my base. That's an excellent village. I should have come this way first. So that was a pretty great haul. So I think we have spent enough time on my ramblings and exploring 1.21.10. It's time to talk about copper. This is going to be a multi-part series, kind of like a copper arc. We're going to take several episodes to get to copper extraction, copper smelting technology. Then we're going to make copper tools and copper armor. We're going to talk about bronze, even though you can't have bronze in vanilla Minecraft. And then, I don't know, we're going to exist in the Copper Age for a while, because we can. Ages ago, I don't really want to think about how long ago, I did a bit of an episode about mining copper, which really was more of a mini episode. I think it was something like 6 minutes. This was back when like shorter videos were doing better on YouTube, and that is completely not the case anymore per se in like 2026. People like longer content now. So we're going to talk about copper mining in more detail than I did in that episode. The info that's in there hasn't really changed. Getting copper ore in Minecraft certainly is still pretty much the same. And the discussion that I had about the Bronze Age and the Copper Age and all of that is the same. But there is a lot more to actually extracting copper than I put in that episode. So the first thing to know is that you can actually just find pure native copper in the ground, which I kind of mentioned already, but I thought I would say it again. Native copper, or any native metal, is a chunk of pure metal. So you can just find chunks of pure copper in the earth. You can't so much anymore today because of copper mining. Humanity, since we started using copper, has been using native copper. So the world's resource of of native copper is severely depleted at this point, but it is still possible to find native copper in the ground. And native copper was one of the more common sources of copper in ancient times, and it didn't really require any refining. I mean, it kind of, there's a degree to which it may have, but it's pure copper. So there's very little. You don't have to get rid of all the other bits around the copper because they don't exist. It's pure copper. But again, because people have been using native copper for millennia, it's not so easy to find anymore. So instead, we tend to use other copper ores. An ore is any natural rock or other solid material, so native copper still counts as a copper ore, that has enough metal in it to be worth extracting. So a copper ore is any natural rock or solid material that has enough copper to be worth mining. Any gold ore is going to be any natural rock or other solid material that has enough gold in it to be worth mining. But copper doesn't come in just a default copper ore in reality. It does in Minecraft, probably to save everybody's sanity. And if you get into modded Minecraft, or if you play games like Vintage Story, you end up dealing with the geological names for a lot of copper ores rather than something that's kind of a generic catch-all copper ore. But in vanilla Minecraft, we have this catch-all copper ore that doesn't really exist in reality. In reality, there are 14 copper ores that we tend to use today. That doesn't mean that there are only 14 in existence, just that there are only 14 that copper mining currently uses, not including native copper. Are you ready for this list? In order of most copper to least copper, we have cuprite, which makes sense. That's cuprite. The Cu is the abbreviation for copper. So cuprous or cuprite, that's coming originally from Latin for copper, which is cuprum, and then it came into English as cupric or cuprous, and that's where we get it. So you can imagine cuprite. It's basically called copperite. So it has a lot of copper. Anyway, we have cuprite, chalcocite, tenorite, digenite, Digimon? Hold on. It's digenite, like Digimon. I'm sorry, because that's how I'm gonna remember it for the rest of my life, probably. Digenite, covalite, bornite, malachite, azurite, tenantite, energite, dioptase, chrysocolla, chalcopyrite, and tetrahedrite. Try saying all of those 5 times fast. Where I live in the UK, many of the archaeological copper mines that we find here, including ones from the Bronze Age, were mining things like malachite or chalcopyrite or bornite. I know that I made a mine ages ago, but I feel like a proper copper mine needs more space. And I wanted more things between my main base area and the houses that I built on the charity stream. There's a lot of blank space between my main base and where the brickworks is, and I would like to fill that out a bit. So I started building a mine a little bit down the road, and I immediately ran into a cave. Maybe not quite immediately, very quickly ran into a cave. And I really didn't want to deal with hostile mobs across the way because I still don't have any armor, which I really need to fix. I need like leather armor is possible. I can't have copper yet, but I can have leather. I just haven't done it. I really should just do it. So rather than deal with skeletons, I turned around and aimed for another wall of the cave, but that made the mine kind of weirdly shaped and like going across into it's a whole thing, but it works out. It's all fine. And actually, it kind of works historical accuracy wise. As I get busy building this mine, let me go on a slight tangent. I know I've been going on a lot of tangents, but I promise you it's worth it. Meet Georg Agricola, also known as Georg Bauer, who was a 16th century German metallurgist and mineralogist. He's often said to be the founder of modern geology. And yes, I do mean the entire field of geology, and that's mostly because of his 2 works, De Natura Fossilium, which he published in 1546, and De Re Metallica, which was published in 1556, 1 year after his death. I've read a lot of De Re Metallica for this video, and also for the next video and the one after that, really for anything to do with metals. And let me tell you, Georg Agricola was sassy. The shade this man throws in the opening pages of his book. Right, so take this bit, right? So for context, Agricola is really one of the first people in Europe to write at length about metals and metallurgy. There really aren't books or anything on the subject, or at least not that many, certainly in the 16th century, which is fair. But then he gets to alchemy, which was popular in Europe, particularly in the 15th and 16th centuries. Are you ready for the sass? Here we go. Seeing as there have been so few who have written on the subject of the metals, it appears to me all the more wonderful that so many alchemists have arisen who would compound metals artificially and who would change one into another. Basically, he's saying, since almost nobody has written about metallurgy, it's kinda weird that there are so many alchemists claiming to understand metals as well as they claim to. But that's pretty mild on the Georgius Agricola sass meter. We're only just getting started. He then says that anything most of these alchemists write is, quote, difficult to follow because the writers upon these things use strange names, which do not properly belong to the metals, and because some of them employ now one name and now another, invented by themselves, though the thing itself changes not. Effectively, he's saying, it's difficult to read what they write because they keep making up names for metals that nobody else uses, and some of them call the same metal several different totally made-up words that nobody else uses. And here's where it gets really good, okay? The whole turning iron into gold stuff, Agricola says, quote, whether they can do these things or not, I cannot decide. But seeing that so many writers assure us with all earnestness that they have reached that goal for which they aimed, it would seem that faith might be placed in them. Yet, also seeing that we do not read of any of them ever having become rich by this art, nor do we now see them growing rich, although so many nations everywhere have produced and are producing alchemists, and all of them are straining every nerve night and day to the end that they may heap a great quantity of gold and silver, I should say the matter is dubious. To put that in normal people words, he's saying, I don't know if alchemists can change one metal into another like iron into gold, but since so many of them say they've done it, you might believe them. But since none of them ever get rich from changing iron to gold, for example, even though there are alchemists all over the place and all of them are spending loads of time each day doing such things, I don't really believe them. And then he says, although it may be due to the carelessness of the writers that they have not transmitted to us the names of the masters who acquired great wealth through this occupation, certainly it is clear that their disciples either do not understand their precepts, or if they do understand them, they do not follow them. For if they do comprehend them, seeing that these disciples have been and are so numerous, they would have by today filled whole towns with gold and silver. Again, in normal people words, he's basically saying, maybe all the alchemists who write about other alchemists who changed iron to gold, for example, were just careless and didn't bother to tell us who these people are. But even so, all the alchemists who then studied those books either didn't understand the basic rules of alchemy enough to figure it out themselves, or if they did understand them, they don't bother to use them, because if they understood how alchemy worked, given how many alchemists there are, they would have made loads of towns and cities rich already, and they haven't. And then he says that some alchemists like to use names like Plato and Aristotle, quote, in order that such high-sounding inscriptions may impose upon simple people and pass for learning. So basically, he says they're using those names to sound smarter than they actually are. Dude, it's this entire passage is a really wonderful 16th century takedown, and I am here for it. Anyway, Georgius Agricola, or Georg Bauer, wrote a lot about mining and metallurgy in this book, and he included woodcuts that show the whole process. So like, this is an immense resource, but it is also at times very sassy, and I love it. In the real world, copper is usually mined in what's called an open cast or open pit mine. These mines start from the surface and mines everything in an area while stepping downwards, making enormous pits in the earth. So think of like a step pyramid, but reversed. And a lot bigger. These steps are called benches, and they differ in size depending on what's being mined and what equipment the miners are using. Also, the surrounding terrain, if you're mining in something that's more gravelly or sandy, something that has less structure to it, you're gonna need different safety measures than mining in something that's more clayey or loamy. Why do they dig such a wide hole? Partly so that you can easily get the ore out of the pit, but also for safety reasons. In fact, we use the same principles in archaeology. If you dig straight down, there's a really good chance that you're gonna get a cave-in, and anyone in the pit at the time would be in danger of getting buried or hurt from debris or worse. In archaeology, the general rule is that any trench where a person can't easily lift themselves out needs to have a ladder, and any trench going deeper than roughly 1.5 meters or 5 feet, somewhere in there, should probably be stepped to avoid a cave-in. If it's not stepped, often due to a lack of space, then the wall should be reinforced in some way, or there should be other safety measures in place to avoid a cave-in. If you're on a dig and someone's telling you to dig significantly more than about 1.5 meters deep without stepping or reinforcing the trench walls, you are allowed to ask about what safety measures they're taking to ensure that it doesn't collapse on you. No archaeology is more important than you. Also, while we're on the topic, anytime your head is below the trench wall as you dig, if you are closer to the wall than the wall is tall and there is a risk of head injury if that wall collapses, you should be wearing a hard hat. Seriously, there are deadly hazards in archaeological excavations. They usually aren't massive stone boulders chasing you down a hallway. They're things like poisonous plants or venomous animals or heat stroke or hypothermia or collapsed walls or injuries from not wearing protective clothing. Safety should be a priority, and if you notice that it's not, it's okay to say, "I'm not doing that, thanks." Again, no archaeology is more important than you. Anyway, copper mines. I'm not doing an open cast or open pit mine in Minecraft because it's not actually that efficient for copper ore in Minecraft, or at least it's not the most efficient. So like I said earlier, open cast mines are best used for metals that appear close to the surface. They can be up to 1.3 kilometers or 0.8 miles deep, so you could definitely use one in Minecraft and get at copper ore. And copper ore appears close to the surface in the real world. But it doesn't generate in Minecraft the same way that it appears on Earth, mostly because the Earth goes a lot deeper than a Minecraft world. Instead, copper ore is most common at Y level 44, and it's got a pretty similar spawn rate or world gen, I suppose, from Y level 33 to 46 or so. So you can really mine anywhere between 33 and 46 and find a sizable amount of copper. Above Y46, copper drops off pretty quickly, with less than half the amount of copper at Y60. The drop-off is less steep at Y levels under Y33, but even by Y18, the generation rate is already less than 3/4 of that between Y33 and Y46. So really, you can target Y44 if you really want to. You can also target anywhere between Y33 and Y46 and get lots of copper. I wouldn't necessarily worry about targeting other levels if you are looking for large amounts of copper. TLDR, the highest rates of copper are between Y33 and Y46. Since sea level is Y63, any mines built above ground would need to fully excavate about 20 to 30 layers of dirt and stone and such before reaching the best copper ore rates. That's a lot, and I don't know about you, but I end up swimming in copper pretty easily even when I'm not mining in the most efficient Y levels. Plus, I didn't choose to build along this mountain just to flatten it. I know some people do that, but I built here for the mountain, so I'm not gonna start flattening the mountain. So a standard Minecraft strip mine works for us here. I did have a look into what Agricola says about mines. He mostly talks about gold or silver or tin mines, but copper is included in his book, and he gives a lot of detail about the whole process. His tome has 12 sections, which he calls books, and it isn't until book 5 out of 12 that he talks about what happens once the miners find an ore vein. Prior to that, it's all figuring out where the ore veins are and what kind of equipment to use, etc., etc., etc. Like I said, he is detailed in what he is describing. There is a reason he is seen as the father of geology and mineralogy. To give an example, quote, Now, when a miner discovers a vena profunda, he begins sinking a shaft, and above it sets up a windlass and builds a shed over the shaft to prevent the rain from falling in, lest the men who turn the windlass be numbed by the cold or troubled by the rain. The windlass men also place their barrows in it, and the miners store their iron tools and other implements therein. Next to the shaft house, another house is built where the mine foreman and the other workmen dwell, and in which are stored the ore and other things which are dug out. Although some persons build only one house, yet because sometimes boys and other living things fall into the shafts, most miners deliberately place one house apart from the other, or at least separate them by a wall. So basically he's saying, They dig a shaft and they set up a windlass, which is basically like the crank system for a pulley. They set that up and then they build a shelter over it so that the people who are working the windlass don't have to sit out in the elements freezing in the rain or the snow or something like that. And then they set up another house for everybody to live in that is kind of separated from the shelter that's over the windlass. Sometimes people do build only the shelter over the windlass and everybody lives in there, but because sometimes there are children or younger people around the mines, if their house is on top of the shaft, they can sometimes fall in. And so a lot of people will separate the living quarters so that the youngest people on site have no reason to go to where the windlass is, and therefore the shaft that they can fall down. Quote, now a shaft is dug, usually 2 fathoms long in the course of digging implied in a There's a lot more, but you can see how detailed this book is. Like, he's getting into exactly how large these tunnels are and the different circumstances in which they might be different sizes. Originally, I was going to leave my mine shaft on the incline and not bother with a windlass of any kind, and then I realized that because I had to make that large stretch of tunnel in the cave ceiling, that actually opened out into the surface for a bit. So I made a windlass there. And then I was inspired by everything people have been doing with copper golems, so I had to set some up in here, and I am so excited. Look at these guys, aren't they? Oh my gosh, they're so adorable. I don't even need to ask you if they're adorable, they just are, okay? I know that technically I haven't built copper smelting facilities. I'm not using copper tools or copper armor, but we're close enough to smelting copper, and the copper golems are cute and copper blocks are fun. So we're using them because it's a copper mine. We gotta have copper stuff around. As I said, don't worry, I'm not gonna be using copper tools or armor until we've set everything up for smelting copper and then making those objects. Everything you'd need in reality. I mean, we've had the option in Minecraft for ages. It's not hard to smelt copper in Minecraft, but we are going to set it up as it would be done in reality. Now, these golems took a bit of corralling, especially since I wanted the golems to move around, and it turns out that if you get a golem to hold something, they'll wander a little bit before trying to open their copper chest again. If you put a regular chest with at least one item that isn't the same as what they're holding, the golems will travel between the copper chest and the regular chest, but never put down the item in their hand. I know other folks have been putting hoppers from the regular chest back to the copper one, and I'll probably do that eventually, at least in some form, but hoppers require iron. So this is an ironless way to get a similar amount of movement with the copper golems. Since they have nowhere to put their items, though, you do need to put a gate or something to stop them wandering all over the place, because it's... Look, I didn't realize this in time, and you can see the chaos that ensued, so I did eventually just put little gates up for them. Now, here is the really cool part of copper mining that I wish we could do in Minecraft. In ancient times, and really up until the late 1500s, people mined ore with picks, sure, but a lot of the time they did something called fire setting. Fire setting is a mining technique where you stack a bunch of logs next to or under an ore vein, and then you light them on fire. The fire heats the rock quickly and cracks the stone open through thermal shock, making it way easier to wedge a pick or, a wedge into the stone to break it off. But if you've lit a fire under a rock to heat it up to a point where it breaks off due to shock, that stone is obviously not safe for miners to touch. So they would throw water or some other liquid onto the rock to cool it down enough for them to handle. Isn't that cool? I wish we could do that in Minecraft. It would be an expensive way to mine though, so maybe I don't wish that we could do that in Minecraft. But I did find a way to make it look like my golems are fire setting. It's a little frustrating, but copper golems need to have a full block of open access to access a chest. As in, you can't hide a chest behind a trapdoor or a stair or a slab, those kind of things. But I realized that since these are pretty much all in stone, I could hide the chest with a light gray banner. I'd rather not have this hole here at all, but I think the banner works pretty well. And then basically, we have the little copper golem holding a log, going over and looking as though they are interacting with the fire with the log. They never get rid of the log, they never move it anywhere, but they still have a look inside. So we have a copper mine, a proper one, not just the small one I made further up the mountain. This one takes advantage of Minecraft's copper ore generation, and it gives a few nods to historical and modern copper mining. The next step is to get the copper out of the ore. But I think that's a job for the next episode because it's pretty involved and we've already done quite a lot today. So I'm going to end the episode here and we'll get to extracting copper next time. That's all from me for today, everybody. Thank you all for tuning in, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.